Hi, my name is Lindley, and I'm a Master of Public Health student.
Hi, my name is Estefania and I am a public health student.
My name is Nusrat Abdullah. I am one of the graduate student in Public Health Department. Welcome everyone. Today we are here to talk about an important topic that affects the health of many women in our community. That is cervical cancer. Cervical cancer is a disease that can affect any woman, but unfortunately, the Hispanic women in the United States are at the higher risk of developing and dying from cervical cancer compared to the non-Hispanic whites. Additionally, language and cultural barriers make it difficult for Hispanic women to access and receive appropriate cervical cancer screening. This is a serious concern, but the good news is cervical cancer can be prevented by regular screening. In this workshop, we will be discussing the importance of cervical cancer screening and prevention for Hispanic women. We will cover some topics such as what is cervical cancer, how it can be prevented, and what to expect during a screening appointment. Our goal today is to provide you with the information and resources that are culturally and linguistically appropriate, overcome any barriers to accessing screening, how to receive appropriate follow-up care if needed. So, you need to take control of your cervical health and make informed decision about your care. We encourage you to ask questions and participate in our discussions so that we can work together towards better health outcome in our community.
Hi everyone, welcome to the HPV and cervical cancer workshop. My name is Lindley, I'm one of the facilitators today. We're going to be talking about HPV and cervical cancer, but before we do that, we're going to do a little activity to get to know each other. It's actually a game. The game is called Common Thread, and we're going to be using this string. The goal of the game is to get to know each other better through sharing our mini stories. And by mini, I mean like small stories. So even though we don't know each other, we have lots in common. So the way the game will work is people in each group will share a mini story about themselves. And when you find something that you have in common with what someone else is sharing, you will speak up and you'll grab another part of the thread and then you'll share a mini story about yourself. We'll all keep sharing mini stories and finding things in common with each other until the timer rings. And once the timer rings, we will cut the string and look at the web of connections that we have. Okay, so let's get started with a demonstration. As a reminder, each person must share a story that connects them to the person before. I'll start. I have a cat. Does anyone else have a cat?
I have a cat as well. And I also have a family. I have my husband and my two children, a 9-year-old boy and a 4-year-old daughter.
Oh wow, you have a big family. So I also have a family in here. So I live with my husband and my 3-year-old baby, my daughter. She like to play soccer, and she also has a soccer ball, and she likes to kick the soccer ball, and we all together to play with her. It's so much amazing when we play together.
Oh, I used to play soccer when I was her age. I don't have any children, but I used to teach at preschool and I really enjoy spending time with children. Is anyone here a teacher?
Not a teacher, but I'm a substitute teacher and I work at a high school. So I get to make great relationships with my students and other teachers as well. On my free time though, I like to go shopping or go to the park.
Wow, I also like shopping, but on my free time I like to read books, watching movies, and sometimes listening music. And I like romantic movies and also some comedy movies. And actually I'm from Bangladesh, so I like to watch Bangladeshi movie. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I like romantic movies too.
Wow.
And I've never seen a Bangladeshi movie, but I would like to. And now that our string is finished and the timer is almost up, we will cut the string and look at the web of connections. Right, so now that we finished our icebreaker activity, I wanted to ask, what did y'all think about the connections that you shared with other people in the room? And were you surprised by any of those connections?
Well, I think it was nice to see how we're all similar in different ways, and we really don't recognize that until we start talking about it with each other.
Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else?
Yeah, I know about Stefania and you lately. I know many things from your life, and I also know about your family. And yeah, it's make a not only just introduction, but also it's just make a good connection of all of us.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so now that we've gotten to know each other a little bit better, we're gonna move on to the next part of our workshop, and a different facilitator is going to lead us through an activity where we talk about HPV.
My name is Stefania. I'm going to be one of the facilitators for the workshop today. So before we start learning about HPV and cervical cancer, let's take a couple of minutes to talk to each other about what we know about cervical cancer. If you don't know anything about cervical cancer or HPV, just talk to each other about why you decided to come to this workshop to learn about it today.
Hi. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
So I'm here today because I know someone who recently got diagnosed with cervical cancer. So I hope to learn more about cervical cancer, and I hope to learn about how I can help young women prevent cervical cancer.
Oh, that's a good idea, and I feel very sorry that someone you know died by cervical cancer. But I have a little idea and little information about cervical cancer. That is one of the most common cancer that affected by women, and the cervical cancer is caused by human papillomavirus. And
Oh, it's caused by a virus?
yeah, I think so, but I'm not sure.
Oh, I hope to find out more about that.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, so let's go ahead and come back together. So is there anything anybody would like to share, something that you might have found surprising, or something new that you learned about our topic? Yes.
Yeah.
I learned that cervical cancer is caused by a virus, or can be caused by a virus.
Oh yeah, so there's actually several types of viruses that can cause cervical cancer, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But thank you for sharing. So now that we've completed our first activity, let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to be discussing one of the most important and common health issues in women all over the world. So it's HPV and cervical cancer. So I'm going to give you guys some handouts, that way you guys can follow along with me. So our poster up here just shows the anatomy of HPV and cervical cancer. It talks about human papillomavirus, reducing the risk, cervical cancer symptoms, and cervical cancer stages. We also have a diagram of the female reproductive system. Alright, so HPV, also known as human papillomavirus, is a large group of very common viruses. It spreads through sexual contact, including vaginal, anal, and oral sex, and it's very common in people in their early 20s and preteens. Many people will get at least one type of HPV strain in their lifetime, but they won't know it because it doesn't cause any health issues usually, and it usually goes away on its own. So you can reduce the risk of HPV infection by getting vaccinated. You can also use condoms every time you're sexually active with someone, or you can just get screened for cancer by getting pap smears or getting an HPV specific test. And cervical cancer is a cancer that starts in the cells of the cervix. So the cervix is the opening, it leads into the opening of the vagina leads to the cervix, which is right here. And this type of cancer usually develops very slowly. Alright, so now that we've concluded our workshop, is there any questions that anybody has about HPV or cervical cancer?
Yeah, I have a question that is the screening test painful, and also how can I get the screening test?
So the screening test is not usually painful. So the pap smear just involves a Q-tip, and they take a swab of your cervix, and that's pretty much it. And sorry, what's your second question?
The second question is how can I get appointment for screening test?
So there are several resources where you can get a screening test. So you can go to the Department of Health, and they'll be happy to provide you with information, or you can also go online and just search for screening tests near your location if you're not living here on Las Cruces currently.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your question. I hope I answered that.
Yeah, thank you for your information.
You're welcome.
And I have a question about that too. So what are the kinds of tests that you get to screen? Are they the same tests for cervical cancer and HPV?
So the HPV test, it only tests for the virus itself. And then the pap smear or pap test, that one checks for cervical cancer or precancerous cells or cervix changes. And yeah, that's pretty much the main difference, but they can both be used to screen for cervical cancer at the same time as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have come to the end of our workshop. We hope that you found this information helpful and you feel empowered to take care of your cervical health. Remember, cervical cancer is a preventable disease, and regular screening is the best way to detect any abnormal changes early on. We encourage you to talk to your healthcare provider about your screening options and make sure you are up to date on your screening appointment. We also want to remind you that there are resources and support available to help you overcome any barriers to accessing screening and follow-up care. So, do you have any questions regarding this issue? If you have any questions or concern, please don't hesitate to reach out to us or to your healthcare provider. Thank you very much for attending today's workshop. We wish you all good health. Thank you.